under the under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami and the generosity of Savai Man Singh and Akbar, Akbar donated a year's budget of his treasury, which was 30 lakh rupees in those days. Adjusted for inflation, it's a few $1 billion today, and built the first of the first sandstone temple in the world, which was 7 stories tall in height, and a magnificent temple that attracted visitors from all over the world. And Srila Rupa Goswami did not live to see the temple built. However, Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami and Kashishwar Pandit, who were sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan, were there to see the deities, as was Jiva Goswami. And under their presence, the deities manifested. The temple manifested, and the devotees and the temple was there, and the deities were in that temple, the first original red sandstone temple, for a period of 79 years. That temple is still there in Vrindavan today. However, it's a redacted version. It's 3 stories tall as opposed to 7 stories tall originally. Why did that happen? Because we discussed that over a period of years, the Mughal Emperor Akbar died. He gave away to Jahangir. Jahangir gave away to Shah Jahan, and Shah Jahan gave away to Aurangzeb, who had 3 other brothers whom he got murdered. Aurangzeb ruled by the dictate Ya Takht, Ya Tabut, which literally meant either the throne or the graveyard. And he basically was a very tyrant kind of a ruler. And we also spoke about a particular pastime where Aurangzeb on an Ekadashi day is lying down on a balcony in a temple-turned mosque in Mathura, and he sees this magnificent sight in front of him. It's an Ekadashi night, and he sees these ghee lamps decorating the skylight. He makes an inquiry as to what it is, what this enthralling sight is. And he's informed by his trusted advisor that's the lamps adorning the Radha Govindaji temple, because Kashishwar Pandit Prabhu brings that tradition from the temple of Jagannath Puri. If you go to Jagannath Puri on an Ekadashi day, the whole temple is surrounded by ghee lamps. And that same tradition was in place at that time in Vrindavan, in the Radha Govindaji temple. And Aurangzeb is pretty infuriated when he hears of this, and especially more infuriated, when he knows that it's his own grandfather who has built this Vaishnava temple, and he orders for it to be razed to the ground the very next day. And we spoke about how there was one of his soldiers, unknown to us, we don't know what the name of the soldier was, but the soldier had a horse whose name was Pavan, who used to gallop at the speed of the wind. And in the dead of the night, the soldier runs to Vrindavan and informs Shivram Goswami in particular, a major hero in our story, who's the head Mahant or head priest of all the temples in Vrindavan, and informs him of the fact that Aurangzeb has ordered his soldiers to come the next day to destroy these temples, and the Radha Govindaji deities in particular. And Shivram Goswami wastes no time, immediately rings that big bell which was in the temple. And when he rings the big bell, he gets across all the major priests and devotees in Vrindavan and informs them of what is going to happen the next day. Before, as destiny would have it, the next day the Mughal soldiers are marching into Vrindavan, but the devotees have made various arrangements to hide the deities, the various deities. We spoke about some of the prominent deities. The most prominent deity in Vrindavan at the time was, of course, Sri Radha Govinda Devji or Sri Radha Govindaji. How they are hidden in the lake of Govinda Kund. We also spoke about how some of the other deities, Sri Radha Vallabh, are hidden in a cave. Sri Radha Gopinath are actually hidden in a garden bed. Sri Radha Shamsundar, Radha Madan Mohan are all hidden. And all these deities are hidden. The temple, we also spoke a bit about the opulence of the Sri Radha Govinda Dev temple, which was patronized by all the Rajput rulers at the time. And inside the 7-story magnificent temple, it was encrusted with jewels and diamonds, and how all of them get stolen. But the manuscripts and the deities are hidden. We spoke about a novel way in which Shivrama Goswami finds a way to get the deities out of Vrindavan, where they use torchlights made of cow manure in the time. And what the devotees do is they cover their faces and mix opium powder in the cow manure torchlights, and take them past the Mughal guards who are manning the borders. And we spoke about how that puts the guards to sleep. And in this way, the devotees put all these prominent deities in a bullock cart, So coming back to our story, Sri Radha Govindaji, Kashishwar Pandit's Prabhu's deity, the deity of Gaura Govinda given to him by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vrinda Devi, put in a bullock cart covered with hay, and it almost shows as if it's a, it's a farmer's cart full of hay, and they are escorted out of Vrindavan in that way. The deities first come to Radha Kund. We spoke about why Radha Kund was a strategic place where these deities were hidden initially. It's because Radha Kund at the time, as it is today, Radha Kund is a good over half an hour drive from Vrindavan even today. But Radha Kund at the time was full of forests, dense, thick jungle. And also in Radha Kund, you had a lot of the Jats and the Gujar community, who were a community of devotees who were very warrior-like. They were farmers, but they were a warrior class community. And Shivrama Goswami has many disciples, and he makes many disciples in the Jat and the Gujar community, so that they will offer protection to the deities. And then over a period of time, and we spoke about how the deities were used to a very elaborate and opulent form of worship, are now worshipped using whatever nature provides. There was a particular term we used for that kind of worship. It was called Prakriti ka Parivesh, or worship done with whatever Prakriti offers. So they were ornamented with tulsi garland, fed in plates made of mud and clay, and so on and so forth. So we are still doing the recap, by the way. So all this was covered in great detail in the previous 3 weeks. And then the deities, how they make their way from Radha Kund, because there's constant threat to the deities from Aurangzeb and his soldiers, who are still looking for those deities. We briefly touched on, well, if Aurangzeb ordered the razing of the temple, how come we still have the temple of Sri Radha Govinda Devji in Vrindavan today? It's a 3-story temple, not a 7-story. And there was a brief story about how Aurangzeb, again on another Ekadashi night, is at the courtyard of a temple turned into a mosque in Mathura, and suddenly from nowhere they have these thousands of bees that start attacking him. And when he's ushered into the mosque there and treated by one of the local doctors, while the doctor is treating him, Aurangzeb asked the doctor that, I'm such a pious Muslim, how could I be befell with so much injury? And the doctor, who must be a very brave man, his royal physician, the old Muslim gentleman, tells him that, look, it's because of what you did to Radha Govindaji, the temple of the Hindus. Immediately Aurangzeb orders the demolition to stop, and hence we still have, it took them 2 months to destroy 4 stories out of the 7 stories of the original Radha Govinda Devji temple, and which is why even today in modern Vrindavan you can still have access and darshan of 3 stories of the original temple. Meanwhile, our story continues, and our hero Shivrama Goswami is still finding novel ways to keep the deities out of Aurangzeb's sight. We spoke about the travel that the deities endure from originally Vrindavan to Radha Kund, from Radha Kund to Kamevan, which is one of the original 12 forests in Vrindavan. And we spoke about how they're there for a few years, and then when they're in threat again, they move to another place called Bhatara. But how Vrinda Devi decides that she will remain in Kamevan and refuses. The deity of Vrinda Devi doesn't budge when they try to move her, and she appears in a dream to Shivrama Goswami saying that Vrinda or Tulsi Devi does not leave the precinct of Braj, and hence she decides to stay in Vrindavan, and hence the deity of Vrinda Devi is still there in modern day Kamevan, whereas the deities of Gaura Govinda and Radha Govindaji move on. They move to Bhatara, move to Amer, move to various locations. Today it takes 3.5 hours on the Vrindavan-Jaipur highway to get from Vrindavan to Jaipur. The journey started in 1669, and the deities only reached their modern home in Jaipur in 1727. So it took a good 58 years for the deities to find their home. They're in a place called Surya Mahal in modern day Jaipur. Please do visit Radha Govindaji on your next vacation, hopefully to India. Go and see Radha Govinda Devji. There's a verse in the Adi Varaha Puran that one who takes darshan of Sri Radha Govinda in Vrindavan always goes to the planets of the pious people and never comes back to this world. So that's a blessing. So finally in 1727, we've got a few heroes. We've got Raja Jai Singh, who's the king of Jaipur at the time. Before him, Raja Ram Singh. And then Shivram Goswami leaves his body in 1688. The villain in the story, Aurangzeb, leaves his body in the year 1707. And roughly by 1727, Raja Jai Singh decides to build this elaborate city, which is modern day Jaipur, which is named after Raja Jai Singh, the city of victory. And the presiding deity of the city of victory is Sri Radha Govindaji, finally. Then last week we heard about how an offshoot of the Sri Sampradaya, the Ramanandis, take opposition to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. In particular, they take opposition to a couple of things, that Radharani is worshipped alongside Govinda Devji, because they protest that there is no description of Srimati Radharani anywhere in the scriptures. And the topic is so contentious that for a few months, the deity of Radharani is removed from next to Radha Govindaji and kept in Jai Singh's own personal palace. The Ramanandi's second point of argument is that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are not a bona fide sampradaya because they don't have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, on the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, but specifically on the Vedanta Sutras. We spoke about how there's a series of letters exchanged, and a lot of the course material in this class is thanks to the grace of His Holiness Indradumna Swami Maharaj, working with the Vrindavan Research Institute, which has got access to the manuscripts of the time. So we spoke about how then the Vaishnavas are perplexed because Radharani is now separated from Govinda Devji. It took them 58 years to finally get a permanent home for them. And now, Radharani is separated from Krishna. How can that be? And what are the Vaishnavas going to do? What are the Gaudiya Vaishnavas going to do now? We spoke a bit about the history of the Ramanandis. We spoke about a new hero that appeared in the pastime last week. What's his name? For those who attended and were not sleeping. He appears on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada dedicates the Bhagavad Gita as it is to him. Yes, Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushan. We spoke about Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushan, who is a disciple of Radha Damodar Pandit, who instructs him to go to Vrindavan and learn the Srimad Bhagavatam under Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We heard about the letters exchanged between Maharaj Jai Singh and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where Raja Jai Singh expresses his anxiety that Radharani is separated from Krishna and in his own palace, and that he's put in a real catch-22 situation because the Ramanandis are protesting against basically the existence of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And then we heard about how Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur replies back to Maharaja Jai Singh and tells him, don't worry, all of this is just a manifestation of Srimati Radharani's man, or transcendental pastime where she's had a tiff with Krishna and for a few days she's sulking in another place. And then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur sends Baladev at the time to basically have a debate with the Ramanandis. We spoke a bit about the history of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, who was just known as Baladev then, how he originally came from Remuna in Orissa, studied under Radha Damodar Pandit, who is a disciple of Rasikananda Prabhu, one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's confidential associates. And now here he is in Jaipur. And the Ramanandis give him 3 months to come up with a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And then we heard about Baladev then meditating and praying fervently to Govinda Devji, who appears in his dreams and tells him to go ahead and start writing his commentary, and tells him that he'll personally guide him. And not only will he finish his commentary on time, but it will be flawless. So we heard last week about how Baladev Vidyabhushan then, in under 3 months, writes a commentary not just on the Vedanta Sutras, but also the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, and presents it so expertly in front of the Ramanandis that he defeats them in debate. And some of the Ramanandis cross over and become Gaudiya Vaishnavas because he's a Digvijay. And Maharaja Jai Singh is elated and gives him this title. What title does he give him? Yes, Vidyabhushan, a jewel of knowledge amongst devotees. And so Srila Baladev becomes Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan and saves the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and hence you all are still here. Because this Sampradaya wasn't debunked 500 odd years ago. Thanks to the grace of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. If you ever open a copy of Bhagavad Gita as it is, you will see that Srila Prabhupada has dedicated. So Baladev Vidyabhushan dedicated his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra to Radha Govindaji. And Srila Prabhupada has dedicated his commentary of the Bhagavad Gita as it is to Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. And he uses a particular name. Because the whole commentary is, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan says, has been manifested, and these are the spoken words of Govinda Devji. What was the name given to that commentary? Yes, thank you, Mataji. And hence that commentary is called Govinda Bhashya. And Prabhupada, extols the Govinda Bhashya at the start of the Bhagavad Gita and makes an offering to Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, the author of the Govinda Bhashya, spoken by Radha Govinda Devji. So you can see the imprint of Sri Radha Govinda Devji on ISKCON's Bhagavad Gita as it is in all our books, even today. And then we spoke about Baladev Vidyabhushan, the heroic welcome he gets when he goes back to Vrindavan, and how he is given the service of looking after the deities of Sri Radha Shamsundar. And how when he finally leaves his body, his Samadhi Mandir still exists today in the temple compound of Sri Radha Shamsundar. We spoke a bit about how the devotees from Vrindavan then argue with Maharaja Jai Singh and want all these prominent deities back. So all the prominent deities in Vrindavan are now in Jaipur, as you know. Sri Radha Shamsundar, Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Radha Govindaji, of course, Sri Radha Vinod, Sri Radha Damodar. All the original deities are still in Jaipur. And Maharaj Jai Singh argues back that the deities are now the property of the king of Jaipur because they have spent considerable time in his own palace. And it's because of these kings, the lineage of these great kings, who offered them protection. And hence the deities are still there today in modern day Jaipur. So, is there anything else that we covered? In these? Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Mataji. I was trying to see who still remembers. So then we spoke briefly about how the original reason why the Gaudiya Vaishnava devotees did not have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra is because they considered the Srimad Bhagavatam to be the essence of all Vedic scriptures, the summum bonum, as Prabhupada says, of all Vedic knowledge. And hence they did not originally have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is all about the glorification of the Lord and His devotees. So we took a brief segue last week and glorified two other devotees in this pastime. Both of them were Akbar's queens. One was Jodha Bai and the other one was Taj Bibi. We spoke about the pastime of Jodha Bai and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's disciple, Vrindavan Bhatta Goswami last week, and then we spoke a bit about Taj Bibi, who's initially she was the daughter of Akbar's spiritual master, and Akbar later married her, and how we spoke about this unique pastime where she's wandering around, passing through Vrindavan on a palanquin, and she hears the bell of the temple of Sri Radha Govinda Devji and inquires what it is, and in a conversation with the palanquin bearer, ends up in the temple of Radha Govinda Devji insistently to take darshan. And after that, taking darshan, decides to renounce her queenly duties and stay in the temple of Radha Govinda Devji for the rest of her life. And we actually ended the class by going through one of her 400 poems. In fact, the poem that she is reciting before the deity of Srinathji in Gokul. She takes initiation in the Sampradaya of Vallabhacharya in the Pushti Marg, and is a regular visitor to the temple of Radha Govinda Devji as well as to the temple of Srinathji, who are now in Udaipur, but then we're in Gokul, and we heard her most beautiful poem that she recites before the deity of Srinathji in Gokul, before leaving her body at the end of the poem. So that was a great way to end the class last week. So this was our not so short recap over the last 3 weeks. So today is our final installment of the pastimes of Sri Radha Govinda Devji, and I've just skimmed the surface, so to speak. So today's class also mostly would be focused on the glorification of some devotees, one in particular. So we'll start the class by reciting a Bengali prayer, which was quite often recited by Srila Gaura Govinda Goswami or Gaura Govinda Swami. Anyone heard of Gaura Govinda Swami Maharaj? Who has? Put your hands up. So Gaura Govinda Swami Maharaj was a very prominent sannyasi in ISKCON. He's written many of the Vaishnava scripture books. He's translated them in Oriya, has fascinating classes. And Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj used to recite this prayer a lot. So we'll start the class with it. So he says, Srila Gaura Govinda Swami says, Vaishnavera gunagan karile jivana tran suniyache guru sadhu mukhe. The translation of the prayer is, I've heard from the lotus mouth of sadhu and guru that by glorifying Vaishnavas, one delivers oneself from this material world. Which this is the importance of glorifying the devotees of the Vaishnavas of the Lord. That by doing so, one, what do? By glorifying the Vaishnavas, you're delivering yourself from this material world. So, the hint last week that I ended the class on that is that today we'll speak a bit about the lineage of Maharaj Jai Singh. Who was the first Rajput king or general we spoke about who helped build the temple of Govinda Devji? Yep, Raja Man Singh. Man Singh, then we spoke about Raja Ram Singh, Jai Singh. We spoke about Udar Singh, his Maharaja Ram Singh's cousin in between as well. All of these kings came from a particular lineage. They came from the Kurma Kul. What was the Kurma Kul? The Kurma Kul is the lineage where the original the original ancestor was Kurmadev or Krishna in his manifestation as the tortoise. And the actual spot where the Radha Govindaji temple was built in Vrindavan was the Yoga Pit or the original Kurma Sthal or the original place where Krishna manifested as the tortoise or Kurmadev many yugas ago in the Satyuga. And hence that was another reason why all of these kings were so supportive of the deities and of the temple of Sri Radha Govindaji. So after Jai Singh Jai Singh the second, and we spoke a bit about Raja Jai Singh's noble qualities, about how, and we spoke about the prayer that used to be on all his insignia last time, which extolled Radha Govindaji. And in fact, on the insignia, there was words to the effect that, I bow down to the lotus feet of Radha Govindaji, unto whose feet Jai Singh, Savai Jai Singh takes shelter. That used to be on the insignia of all the coins of Jai Singh back in the day. So after Jai Singh too, and he left the world at the age of 54, chanting what? Who was in the class? Yes, thank you, Prabhu. So Maharaja Jai Singh leaves his body at the age of 54 chanting Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda. And in that way he leaves for Goloka Vrindavan. After Jai Singh too, there were some other great Vaishnava kings in that family line. There was Ishwar Singh, there was Madhava Singh the first, and King Madhava Singh the first was a very unique king. He used to spend a predominant portion of his day in the actual temple worship of Sri Radha Govindaji. He used to also give a lot of charity and actual gold coins to all the singers and dancers early in the morning in the Radha Govindaji temple. And there are many records written by his courtiers of his daily activities. His son and the hero of today's pastime, of today's story, so we finally got to today's lecture, was King Pratap Singh, the son of Madhav Singh the first. And King Pratap Singh was also very well renowned for his staunch devotion to Radha Govindaji. In fact, Maharaja Pratap Singh also, and this is Maharaja Pratap Singh, not to be confused with Maharana Pratap, who was another very great Rajput warrior, but who was born a few centuries earlier in the time of Akbar. This is post Aurangzeb's time, and we've got Maharaja Pratap Singh. Maharaja Pratap Singh was so dear to the Lord that Radha Govindaji used to appear in his dream every night. And hence, in his royal subjects, he had a nickname. He was given the name Vrajanidhi, or the treasure of Vrindavan. So Rajanidhi or Maharaja Pratap Singh, he had a replica deity of Radha Govindaji in black stone in his own palace, whom he used to worship every day. And there's a very famous story connected with Raja Pratap Singh. I mean, if you go and meet a particular, those tourist guides in Jaipur, they may not know of the kings, but they always tell you the story. I know it because that's when I first heard the story, back in 1994. And now, over a period of time, I'm quite surprised, they were talking about Maharaja Pratap Singh. So Maharaja Pratap Singh had this very unique morning program. to say the least. Every day in the morning, from 5:30 a.m. in the morning till midday, till just half an hour past midday, till 12:30, he would engage his time in deity worship, specifically worshipping his replica deity of Radha Govindaji. And he used to spend, a best part of 7 hours of his day in deity worship. And it was a very strict morning program that he had. That he used to involve chanting, singing, dressing the deity, and the recitation of various mantras. He used to compose poems in the glorification of the Lord each and every day. And he had this strict rule that no one was meant to disturb him while he was in the middle of his deity service. Absolute nobody. And if you actually made that mistake, it didn't matter who you were, you would be met with some serious chastisement. So you didn't want to mess around with Maharaj Pratap Singh when he was in his morning worship. And one fine day, and what used to usually happen in that kingdom, so one may wonder that if the king spending from 5:30 in the morning to 12:30 in the afternoon in deity service, who's taking decision and managing the affairs of the state. So he'd actually deputed one of his chief ministers, whose name was Jayachand, not to be confused with the other Jayachand in the story of Prithviraj Chauhan, who was a bit of a traitor. This is another Jayachand altogether. So he deputed his chief minister Jayachand into running the affairs of the state while he was engrossed in his deity worship. So Jayachand used to make some of the kingly decisions on behalf of King Pratap Singh. So now one fine day, anyone here who's been to Jaipur? You are, Prabhu? No? Okay, so you've seen those forts that encircle the outskirts of Jaipur? So they were specifically constructed to protect the city, and as you may know. So one day the city was besieged by the Mughal army, who suddenly attacked in the morning. And the Mughal soldiers were trying their best to bombard those forts as well as, climb past the forts and get into the city of Jaipur. And while they were doing so, what was Maharaj Pratap Singh doing in the morning? Yeah, he was engrossed in his deity worship and he wouldn't come out. And nobody could go there so Jayachand, his minister, still went near his door and rang a bell to catch his attention, but he didn't get any response from the king. So the king was very busy in his deity worship and wouldn't come out. He kept ringing the bell. After a while he went back. And Jayachand was thinking, what do we do now? And he was trying to get the soldiers ready to give a riposte to the Mughal army. And generally, an army without its commander is like a rudderless boat. It's pretty dysfunctional. So they were still trying to get everything in order to fight against the Mughals. Where suddenly at 8:30, Maharaj, much against his own rules, Maharaja Pratap Singh came dressed in the royal armor, dressed from head to toe with a sword which used to take 3 men to carry. It was such a long sword. And with one swoop of the hand, he came with the sword adorned with all his weapons and his royal armor ready to fight. As per the royal tradition, his queen met him. And the queens were very brave in those days. They were Shatranis. And what the queen did was just brushed her thumb past his sword, and that immediately drew blood. And she put a tilak on his forehead with her blood. And she chanted Vijay Bhava, Vijay Bhava, Vijay Bhava 3 times, which meant may you be victorious, may you be victorious, may you be victorious. And that was the tradition. And after going through these prayers, Maharaj Pratap Singh, rode onto his horse and led his army out to fight with the Mughals. The fighting was particularly fierce. It's described in the annals of history in that part of the world, in Jaipur. And Maharaja Pratap Singh on that day, he single-handedly killed 300 of the enemy soldiers. And the way he killed them is that with one swoop of his sword, he cut the enemy soldier into half, which is described in literature back to that age, especially in the Vrindavan Research Institute, as well as in the folk tales of Jaipur. Maharaja Jai Singh was particularly fierce. He showed no mercy, is what the description states. No mercy and no sign of fatigue. And the battle lasted a good 3.5 hours. And in 3.5 hours, 7,000 of the rival soldiers were killed and the others retreated. And the battle was won by the Rajputs. And but in the course of the battle, while Maharaja Pratap Singh was fighting, enemy generals came, and he had a lance in his hand. And while Maharaja Jai Singh was fighting a soldier from front, he threw the lance at Jai Singh, and it pierced and it went right through his foot. Maharaja Jai Singh nonchalantly removed the lance and continued fighting, and there was a whole gush of blood coming out, and slaughtered that general as well, and basically killed all these enemy soldiers, a lot of them single-handedly. And his army won over a period of 3.5 hours. Of course, the royal physician attended to the king and put a bandage around him. But the whole place was like left in a wake of blood, with all these soldiers dying on both sides, predominantly the Mughal soldiers. And in this state of triumph, Maharaj Pratap Singh marched back into Jaipur with his victorious army, and the relieved public or subjects of Jaipur had sandalwood pasted over the roads, and all kinds of different scents brought out in glorification of the king and his military feats, and he was glorified at length. And in this state, battle weary, covered with dust, Maharaja Pratap Singh gets into his palace and walks straight back into his deity room. And the time's around 12:30, and everyone's rejoicing in Jaipur that we've defeated the Mughals. Less than 2 minutes that he walks into the deity room, he comes back out, totally fresh, but again, totally decked up with his sword and with his armor and all his military gear. And when he comes to the court, all the subjects look at him in awe, that you just went in 2 minutes ago and you were filled with dust, your leg was bandaged because the lance cut through your leg and you were bleeding so profusely, and you had that injury. And you were so tired, and now you walked in, you walked back. What did you do in these 2 minutes? And Maharaja Pratap Singh curiously looked at Jaichand, the minister, and all these subjects and said, "What are you talking about? I was finishing my morning deity service, which you know that I never leave. And I've just finished it now, and I've just come out. Come on, let's go to the battlefield." And Jaichand, the minister, and all these and all the regulars at the court explained to the king that we just finished the battle. You fought fiercely for 3.5 hours. You single-handedly killed 300 of the enemy soldiers, sliced them into half. You sustained this injury in the battle as well. And we won the battle, and we actually had this Vijayotsav, or a victory festival after coming back. Which battle are you talking about? And you were leading us all the way. And Maharaja Jai Singh looks up at the sky, and being a very pure devotee of the Lord, this is what the literature of the day suggests in the Vrindavan Research Institute. He looks at the sky and says, "Oh Govinda, it can only be you." And he just orders everybody in his court to march towards the temple of Radha Govindaji, the temple that still stands today in Surya Mahal in Jaipur. So please make a point to visit it if you haven't. And all of them go at around between 12:30 and 1. You come here between 12:30 and 1, there'll be the afternoon arti, which finishes at 12:45. Around that time, when the temple curtains have just closed, with a clasp of his hand, he signals to the head pujari to open the curtains. And when the pujari opens the curtain, they can see Krishna or Radha or Govindaji just smiling with his flute, totally covered in dust and soaked in blood at the bottom in his leg, with a bandage tied around his leg. And I think words fail anybody who tries to describe the scene, and I think I'm in the same boat. I can't quite describe what it must have been like in Jaipur at that point in time, but everyone's just aghast. A few people faint, and people are just not able to behold what they've just witnessed. So it was actually Govinda Devji, who was fighting as Maharaja Pratap Singh in the battle for the last 3.5 hours. The Lord has literally come to aid his devotee, impersonating him. So the next few hours, word gets around Jaipur, and the devotees in their tens of thousands to their hundreds of thousands flock to the temple to get a glimpse of both Radha Govinda Devji and his very dear devotee Maharaja Pratap Singh. And they glorify the king as well, that the king must have been such a pure devotee of the Lord, that the Lord himself came to fight on his behalf. And it's quite an unbelievable scene. And, it's Generally, when you hear these kind of lectures and you hear these kind of stories, they appear quite a bit incredible or incredulous. So I thought before we end the class, we'd summarize. There's a passage in the Bible where Matthew says in the Bible, it's chapter 14, text 28 to 31. Once Jesus' disciples saw him walking on water towards their boat in the middle of the night. And there was one of the apostles amongst those disciples, his name was Peter. And he says to Jesus that, "Oh Lord, can I also walk on water?" And Jesus looked at him and said, "Come." And Peter the apostle started walking on water as well. But then there was a gush of wind, and Peter thought that, "Oh, I'm going to fall in this wind." And he started sinking. And then he started crying out, "Oh Lord, save me, save me." Jesus reached out with his hand and caught him and said, "Oh, ye of little faith, why did you doubt?" So if anybody is doubting, just like Jesus says in the Bible to Peter, "Why do you doubt?" It's the same riposte you'd give here. Why do you doubt about these pastimes? So with that, we kind of end this lecture series of the hidden pastimes of Sri Radha Govindaji. Thank you very much for your attention over the last 4 weeks, even for everybody hearing remotely on Mayapur.tv. It was a great pleasure to prepare for these lecture series, and it's a bit bittersweet that they're ending, but anyways, this is where we are. So, Sri Radha Govindaji ki, Maharaja Pratap Singh ki. So, do we have any questions? Any questions about today's class or the previous classes or the days gone by? None whatsoever. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, we've seen. We've seen. So the question was that after hearing these kind of pastimes, there will still be some residual doubt in people's minds. The question was, have you seen anything similar? Is that what you? Prabhu, we've seen so many things. But even if you look back a few hundred, we recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of ISKCON in 2016. And this whole movement, which has over 100 temples and restaurants all over the world, was built by a 70-year-old Bengali gentleman with 40 rupees in his pocket who went in 1965 on a boat to New York and had 3 heart attacks on the way, guided just by his own spiritual master's instruction to go out and preach in the West. So that's no less a miracle than some of the others that are manifesting in these pastimes. Did that answer your question? But there are so many, too many to count, to be honest. Prabhu, there are. Look, I don't think I'm at that level, but there are so many. When you hear of people's stories as to how they came into Krishna consciousness, I'll tell you, okay, I'll give you one personal example. It's not to do with me personally, but it's one of my god brothers. I have a god brother. He lives in Europe now. He used to be the temple treasurer of the Paris temple. He was a very wealthy banker. And over a period, and he was a very wealthy banker, and he actually, the story goes that in Europe, my spiritual master, His Holiness Indradumna Swami Maharaj, especially in Poland, he has this festival of India every year. In fact, one's going on now, where they crisscross the length and breadth of Poland and have, festivals with harinams and skits and dramas on the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita discourses, and they feed hundreds and thousands of people every year. So that particular time where this god brother of mine, who became my god brother later, he was a very wealthy banker and he was traveling on a train. And there was one of those traveling devotees from Poland had come to France, and at the train station came to give him a book. He actually pushed her out on the train, and she fell on the train pavement and was bleeding. But even in that state, she got up and offered pranams and left. So many years back, my godbrother, he lost his wife, who he was very attached to, and he basically had no meaning left in life. And he attempted to take his own life. And as he was trying to jump from the parapet of the balcony of his house in Paris, he found a copy of the Krishna book there, of all the places. And he scrolled through the Krishna book. I don't know what dawned upon him. He decided to re-enter his house from the balcony, jumping over the balcony, read the Krishna book, went to the temple, and over a period of time, met the devotees, heard many lectures on the Bhagavad Gita, got initiated. His name Surya Narayan Prabhu today, got remarried, and actually after many years, he ran into his future god sister, who was that same devotee who he had pushed out of the train. And he basically, they reconciled, he asked for forgiveness. But this is no less a miracle of a person who's, about to end their own life and turns their life around so much. So that's another example. I hope that answered your question. Anyone else has any questions? Yes, Prabhu. No. So the Bhagavad Gita as it is a literal translation of the Bhagavad Gita. And if you take a copy of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, there's the original Sanskrit verse, then there's the translation of the verse in whatever language of the Bhagavad Gita you take. It's been translated into so many languages today. And then Prabhupada's written his own purports. So this is Prabhupada's this literal translation of the Bhagavad Gita, which he dedicates to Baladev Vidyabhushan. No, but Baladev Vidyabhushan had to write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. That was the challenge given to him by the Ramanandis. That every bona fide sampradaya has a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't have one. So he wrote a commentary. He didn't rewrite any scripture as such. Any other questions? Okay, if we don't have any other question, then you can think still. You've got 10 minutes. If we don't have any questions, then we'll end the lecture series quite fittingly or appropriately with a couple of verses. One of the verses is by Raja Man Singh or Savai Man Singh, who pledges to build the temple of Radha Govindaji after coming back from Bengal. So Radha Man Singh, the original promise that he made to the deities are also captured by the Vrindavan Research Institute. And thanks to Indradumna Swami Maharaj, we have access to it. So this is his original promise. And we are also getting into that time of the year, which is a very auspicious time of the year. It's a very festive time of the year. What are some of the upcoming festivals in the next month? Yeah, Jhulan Yatra, Balram Jayanti. Yep, Janmashtami and Radhashtami, Nandotsav, all of those good festivals. So Raja Man Singh actually made this promise. Luckily, we have this promise with us. So I'll read this recitation. So Radha Man Singh says, sorry, that's me. I should practice what I preach. So Raja Man Singh says, Vrindavani Dvaitya Vrindabhya Govinda Lalyam Adirena Aham Vidyase Bhattayena Bhuyaha Krishnor Uttara Utsava Sama Brahmayasat. So what it means is, he says, in Vrindavan, which is praised by all the demigods, I will respectfully construct a dwelling abode, dedicated to Govinda Dev for the facilitation of the observance of the festival of Janmashtami. So this is Raja Man Singh's promise that he'd build a temple for the specific purpose is for the facilitation of the festival of Sri Krishna Janmashtami. So this was the original prayer written by Raja Man Singh in 1560. And we've discussed a few of the pastimes of Radha Govinda Devji. There's another famous traveler or Vrajavasi back in the time, Harivamsa. he has this small poem as well, which I'll read, which is quite fitting to the occasion. And we did mention this in the first class as well, where he says, it's in Brajabhasa, or the local Vrindavan language, local Vrindavan Hindi dialect. He says, Chandra mite dhinkar mite tri guna vishtar. Chandra mite dhinkar mite tri guna vishtar. Durita vrata Shri Hari Vamsako mitena nitya vihar. So he says, one day the moon will come to an end. One day the sun will come to an end. Even the three gunas, the sattva, rajas and tamo gunas will come to an end. But the poet Shri Hari Vamsa says, the pastimes of Lord Krishna will never end. They will go on forever and forever and forevermore. So thank you very much. Shri Shri Radha Govindaji Ji ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki. Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai. Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maiya ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki.